Chapter 1. The Nebula Dancer. In the sprawling starlit canvas of the galaxy, where empires rose and fell with the passing of millennia, there existed a pilot whose name was whispered with a mixture of admiration and caution. Zara Lynx, captain of the sleek and nimble ship known as the Nebula Dancer, was as renowned for her unparalleled piloting skills as she was for her flirtatious charm. Her ship, a marvel of engineering with its iridescent hull and fluid lines, was as much a part of her allure as her quick wit and sparkling eyes. Zara wasn't just a pilot. She was a maestro of the stars, dancing between asteroids and weaving through nebulae with the grace of a celestial dancer. Her reputation preceded her in every spaceport and trading post, from the core worlds to the outer rim. Yet, for all her flirtations and dalliances, Zara remained fiercely independent, a free spirit navigating the galaxy on her own terms. On a day like any other, Zara found herself at the bustling spaceport of Calixis Prime, a hub of commerce and intrigue. The Nebula Dancer had just touched down, its engines cooling with a hiss as Zara stepped out onto the landing platform. Her presence immediately drew attention. Her attire, a clever blend of fashion and function, accentuated her confident stance. Her boots clicked against the metal grate with purpose, her eyes scanning the crowd with an inviting smile. Zara's charm was her greatest asset, and she wielded it with precision. It wasn't long before she was approached by a contact, a sly-looking merchant named Tavin. Tavin, like many before him, was momentarily caught off guard by Zara's beauty, but quickly remembered himself. "Zara Lynx, as I live and breathe," Tavin greeted, his smile a mixture of greed and admiration. "I hear you're looking for something special." Zara's smile widened, her eyes glinting with anticipation. "You know me, Tavin. I'm always on the hunt for the next big score. What have you got for me?" Tavin glanced around, ensuring their conversation remained private before leaning in. "Word is, there's a treasure on Veridian III. Not just any treasure, but something ancient, powerful." Zara's interest was piqued. Veridian III was uncharted, a planet shrouded in mystery and evidently riches. The thrill of the unknown called to her, a siren song she couldn't resist. "And what's the catch?" Zara inquired, her tone playful yet sharp. She knew better than to dive into a venture without understanding the risks. "The catch," Tavin began, lowering his voice, "is that you're not the only one looking. There are whispers that the Empire of Ether has its eyes on Veridian III. But if anyone can get to it first, it's you." Zara's gaze hardened at the mention of the Empire of Ether, a formidable power known for its ruthless pursuit of ancient artifacts. The challenge, however, only fueled her resolve. "Consider me intrigued, Tavin," Zara replied, her mind already racing with plans. "Thanks for the tip." As Tavin departed, Zara's thoughts turned to the adventure ahead. She knew assembling a crew would be crucial. The dangers of Veridian III were unknown, and she'd need allies skilled in combat, negotiation, and perhaps a touch of the arcane. Returning to the Nebula Dancer, Zara's hands danced over the controls, her ship responding with the familiarity of an old friend. As the engines hummed to life, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Zara Lynx was about to embark on her most daring adventure yet, into the heart of the unknown, where her charm and skills would be tested like never before. As the Nebula Dancer lifted off, leaving Calixis Prime behind, Zara couldn't help but smile. The galaxy was vast, full of secrets and stories waiting to be discovered. And Zara Lynx, with her flirtatious wit and daring spirit, was ready to write her own. Chapter 2. The Crew of Charms. As the Nebula Dancer streaked through the star-studded void toward the uncharted mysteries of Veridian III, Zara Lynx was already plotting her next move. She knew that a venture as perilous as this required not just a ship and a destination, but a crew capable of facing whatever dangers lay ahead. Zara's mind turned to the individuals she needed: a warrior, a strategist, and perhaps someone with knowledge of the ancient. Her first stop was the rugged moon of Draxos, known for its formidable mercenaries. Here, she hoped to find her warrior. The moon's surface was dotted with bars and hangouts frequented by those looking for work. Zara chose the most notorious of them all, the Gilded Blaster, to begin her search. Stepping into the dimly lit establishment, Zara's entrance did not go unnoticed. Her confident stride, the way her outfit hugged her figure, emphasizing her ample assets with a playful yet commanding presence. She knew exactly the kind of attention she drew and used it to her advantage. It wasn't long before she spotted her target, Kyle, a renowned fighter from Krynn, whose skills in combat were matched only by his stoic demeanor. Approaching the bar, Zara leaned forward, resting on her elbows, which naturally drew attention to her chest, accentuated by her fitted jacket. She caught Kyle's eye, offering him a smile that promised adventure and profit. "I hear you're the best fighter this side of the galaxy," she purred, her voice a melody of intrigue and challenge. "Care to prove it on a venture that could make us very wealthy?" Kyle, initially taken aback by Zara's direct approach and undeniable charm, quickly masked his surprise. "And why would I join you?" he asked, his tone guarded yet curious. "Because I'm going after something big, something only a few dare to dream of," Zara replied, her eyes sparkling with the promise of excitement. "And because I know how to appreciate talents of all kinds," she added, her glance briefly flitting to her own curves as if to underline the double entendre. The hint of a smile tugged at Kyle's lips, an indication that Zara's mix of flirtation and ambition had piqued his interest. "All right, Lynx, you've got my attention. Tell me more about this treasure." With Kyle on board, Zara's next task was to find a strategist and someone with knowledge of ancient civilizations. Her search led her to Jalar, a moon thriving with traders and scholars. It was there she found Ilara, a cunning merchant with a knack for negotiation, and Dex, a scholar with expertise in ancient alien cultures. Zara employed a similar strategy with each new recruit, using her charm and wit to draw them into her orbit. She was transparent about the dangers, but highlighted the rewards, ensuring her crew knew the risks and the potential glory that awaited them. As the newly formed crew gathered aboard the Nebula Dancer, Zara stood before them, her posture confident, her gaze sweeping over her eclectic team. "We're heading into the unknown," she announced, her voice steady and inspiring. "But together, there's nothing we can't face. We have strength, intelligence, and—" she glanced down at herself with a mischievous smile, "other persuasive talents to help us along the way." Laughter and nods of agreement filled the ship's cabin, the crew bonding over Zara's light-hearted acknowledgement of her own flirtatious nature. With the crew assembled and the course set for Veridian III, the Nebula Dancer leaped into hyperspace. Zara Lynx, with her indomitable spirit and undeniable charm, had united a team of the galaxy's best. Together, they were on the brink of uncovering secrets that could change the galaxy forever. Chapter 3: A Dance Amongst the Stars. Zara, aware of the effect her presence had, used it to her advantage, keeping morale high and ensuring her team was motivated. Yet it was her interactions with Kale that seemed to captivate the crew most. The stoic warrior had initially kept to himself, his conversations with Zara strictly professional, focused on strategies and plans for their arrival on Veridian III. However, as days turned into nights and the confined space of the ship fostered closeness, a different kind of strategy began to unfold. One evening, as the Nebula Dancer hummed quietly through a particularly stunning nebula, casting ethereal glows throughout the ship, Zara found Kael alone in the cockpit, his gaze fixed on the swirling colors outside. Seizing the opportunity, Zara approached, her steps silent but purposeful. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she remarked, standing close enough to Kael that he could sense her presence without her touching him. "The galaxy has a way of reminding us how small we really are." Kael turned slightly, acknowledging Zara with a nod. "It does at that," he agreed, his voice a low rumble, "but it also shows how bold we are to traverse it as we do." Their eyes met, and for a moment the vastness of space seemed to condense into the cockpit, wrapping around them, a cocoon of shared daring. Zara leaned in, her arm brushing against Kael's as she pointed to a distant star. "That's where we're heading, to the heart of mystery and danger." The accidental touch sent a spark through them, an electric charge that both acknowledged but neither commented on. It was a game of proximity and words, each dance around the other's personal space, a test of resolve and attraction. Zara smiled, her eyes not leaving Kael's. "I'm glad you're with us, Kael. Your strength will be our anchor." Kael's response was a half-smile, a rare break in his stoic facade. "And your leadership, our guide," he countered, his gaze lingering on hers a moment longer than necessary. The moment was broken by the sudden buzz of the comm system. Ilara's voice, ever practical, called them to a meeting to discuss their approach to Veridian III. As they parted, the air between them crackled with unspoken promises and the thrill of the unknown. The meeting was a display of Zara's command, her ability to steer her crew with confidence and charm. She outlined the plan, her voice firm yet laced with an excitement that was infectious. Yet beneath the professional veneer, playful glances and subtle gestures continued to weave an undercurrent of flirtation and tension, particularly between Zara and Kael. It was a delicate balance, a dance of wills and desires set against the backdrop of their impending mission. As the crew dispersed, preparations for their arrival on Veridian III underway, Zara couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation, not just for the treasure that awaited them, but for the unfolding dynamics within her crew. She knew that the journey ahead would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Yet she also sensed that the chemistry and tension among them could be a strength, binding them together with ties stronger than mere camaraderie. The adventure that lay ahead on Veridian III was more than a quest for treasure. It was a journey into the heart of what it meant to be alive, to desire, and to dare. And for Zara Lynx, the fearless captain of the Nebula Dancer, it was a challenge she was more than ready to embrace. Chapter 4, Closer in the Cosmos. The Nebula Dancer had made its silent voyage through the depths of space, drawing ever closer to the enigmatic planet of Veridian III. Within the confines of the ship, the tension and anticipation had grown, not just for the mission that lay ahead, but between Zara Lynx and her stoic warrior, Kael. Their interactions had become a pivotal part of the crew's dynamics, a dance of flirtation and respect that captivated and amused their companions. Zara, ever the astute captain, had noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The playful banter and charged glances shared with Kael had evolved into something more tangible, a connection that neither could deny nor ignore. It was during one of their late-night navigational checks, a routine task made intimate by the quiet of the ship and the vastness of space outside, that their mutual attraction became impossible to sidestep. Kale stood close to Zara at the navigation console, their focus ostensibly on the star chart projected before them. The proximity allowed Zara to feel the warmth of his body, a sensation that seemed to amplify in the confined space. She was acutely aware of how her fitted shirt accentuated her form, the soft fabric outlining her curves in a way that she knew drew Kale's attention, though he was careful not to make it overt. "Veridian III is coming up," Zara said, her voice low, mindful of the late hour and the quiet around them. "We'll need to be sharp. The planet's atmosphere can be tricky." Kyle nodded, his gaze briefly meeting hers before returning to the chart. "I've heard stories of ships getting lost in the storms. It'll take precise flying to get us through." The mention of precision brought a smirk to Zara's lips. She leaned forward slightly, the movement bringing her closer to Kale, her voice playful yet laced with an underlying challenge. "I've always enjoyed a bit of turbulence. It keeps things interesting." The comment hung in the air between them, charged with double meaning. Kale's response was a soft chuckle, a sound that Zara found surprisingly comforting. "I have no doubt about your skills, Captain Lynx. You've navigated us through worse." Their eyes locked, the space around them charged with unspoken words and suppressed desires. It was Kale who broke the silence, his voice a whisper. "Zara, there's something—" But he was cut off by the sudden lurch of the ship, a warning alarm blaring through the cockpit. A meteor shower had caught them off guard, sending the Nebula Dancer into a series of evasive maneuvers. Instinctively, Zara took the helm, her hands steady despite the chaos. Kale was at her side in an instant, his presence a reassuring force as they worked in tandem to navigate the onslaught. In the heat of the moment, with adrenaline coursing through their veins, the tension that had been building between them transformed. It became a bond, a shared determination to protect the ship and its crew. And as the last of the meteors passed, leaving them unscathed, Zara and Kale shared a look of relief and something more, a recognition of the deep connection that had formed between them, forged in the fires of danger and the vastness of space. As the alarm quieted and their breathing slowed, Zara found herself leaning into Kyle, her head resting briefly against his shoulder. It was a moment of vulnerability, a silent acknowledgement of the trust and attraction that had grown between them. "We make a good team," Zara murmured, her voice carrying a weight of meaning beyond the words. Kale's response was a soft, "Yes, we do," accompanied by a gentle squeeze of her shoulder, a gesture of support, and perhaps a promise of more to explore between them once their mission was complete. As they set their sights once again on the path to Veridian III, Zara and Kale knew that whatever lay ahead, the journey had already changed them. They were no longer just captain and crew, but partners in the truest sense, their connection a beacon guiding them through the darkness of space. Chapter 5. The Night Before the Storm. As the Nebula Dancer approached the turbulent atmosphere of Veridian III, the crew prepared for what would be their most challenging endeavor yet. The planet loomed large on the main view screen, its swirling storms and lightning flashes painting a daunting picture of the task ahead. It was on this night, with anticipation hanging heavy in the air, that Zara Lynx and Kale found themselves grappling with the gravity of their mission and the unspoken feelings between them. After a long day of preparations, Zara invited Kale to join her in the observation deck, a quiet space where the vastness of the galaxy stretched out before them in a breathtaking panorama. It was a place for reflection, and tonight it served as the backdrop for a moment of connection between two souls drawn together by fate and circumstance. The observation deck was dimly lit, the stars outside casting a soft glow on their faces. They stood side by side in comfortable silence, each lost in thought until Zara broke the stillness. "Tomorrow, we face the unknown," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "I can't help but wonder what awaits us on Veridian III." Cale turned to her, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of his commitment not just to the mission, but to Zara herself. Zara looked up at him, her heart swelling with a mix of emotions: fear, anticipation, and something deeper, a connection that had grown stronger with each passing day. "Cale, she began, but the words caught in her throat. "You don't have to say it," Cale said, understanding her hesitation. "I feel it too." In that moment, without words, they communicated more than they had in days of conversation. It was an acknowledgement of the bond they shared, a bond forged through shared dangers and the quiet moments in between. Zara stepped closer, closing the distance between them, and reached for Cale's hand. His fingers intertwined with hers, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. Together, they turned to face the view screen, watching the stars and the swirling planet below. The night stretched on, and they remained there, finding comfort in each other's presence. They spoke of hopes and fears, dreams and doubts, their conversation meandering through the realms of the personal and the philosophical. It was a night of vulnerability, of sharing parts of themselves that they had kept hidden from the world. As the hours passed, the line between captain and crew, between protector and protected, blurred. They were just Zara and Cale, two individuals standing on the precipice of the unknown, finding strength in each other. When at last they parted, returning to their separate quarters to rest before the day's challenges, there was a silent agreement that what had transpired between them would be a source of strength, not distraction. They had not spent the night together in the way some might assume, but in a way that was perhaps more profound. They had shared their fears and hopes, solidifying a bond that would carry them through the trials ahead. As Zara lay in her bunk, staring up at the ceiling, she realized that no matter what Veridian III held, the journey had already given her something invaluable, a connection with Cale that transcended the physical, rooted in mutual respect, trust, and an unspoken promise to face whatever lay ahead together. Chapter 6. The Heart of the Storm. As dawn broke across the galaxy, casting a radiant glow over the Nebula Dancer, the crew awoke to the final preparations before their descent onto Veridian III. The atmosphere aboard the ship was thick with anticipation, a blend of excitement and anxiety as they faced the unknown challenges ahead. Zara Lynx, ever the charismatic leader, moved among her crew with a confidence that was infectious, her flirtatious spirit undimmed, even in the face of danger. She found Cale in the armory, checking and rechecking their equipment. The tension of the impending mission hung between them, yet Zara approached with a lightness that seemed to push back the gravity of the moment. "Making sure everything is in top shape?" Zara asked, leaning against the doorway with a casual grace that drew Cale's attention. Her presence, as always, seemed to fill the room, her confidence a tangible force. Cale looked up, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth despite the situation. "Can't be too careful," he replied, his tone serious but softened by her presence. Zara walked over, her steps measured, each movement deliberate. She picked up a blaster, examining it with an expert eye. "I always admired a man who knows his way around his equipment," she said, her voice laced with innuendo, the light in her eyes playful. The comment earned a genuine laugh from Cale, a sound that resonated warmly in the confined space. "And I've always admired a woman who appreciates that quality," he shot back, the air between them charged with their usual banter. Their eyes met, and for a moment the weight of their mission seemed to lift. Here, in the armory, surrounded by the tools of their trade, they found a moment of levity, a reminder of the connection that had grown between them. Seriously, though, Zara continued, setting down the blaster and turning to face him fully. I need you at your best out there. We all do. This planet isn't going to be kind to us. Kale's expression sobered, the gravity of their task returning. You'll have me at my best, Zara. You have my word. Zara reached out, placing a hand on his arm in a gesture that was both comforting and firm. I know. That's why you're here with me. The moment lingered, a silent acknowledgement of their trust and reliance on one another. Then, with a shared determination, they turned their attention back to the task at hand, finishing their preparations. As the crew assembled, Zara addressed them, her voice carrying through the ship. This is it, she began, her gaze sweeping over each member of her team. Veridian III is uncharted territory, full of unknown dangers. But we've faced the unknown before, and we've always come out on top. Not just because we're skilled, but because we're a team. We look out for each other. We protect each other. Her words bolstered the crew, their faces set with resolve. Zara's leadership, her blend of charisma and competence, had united them, and they were ready to follow her into the heart of the storm. As the Nebula Dancer began its descent, Zara took her place at the helm, Kale at her side. The planet loomed before them, its atmosphere a swirling mass of clouds and lightning. Zara's hands were steady on the controls, her focus unwavering as they plunged into the tempest. The ship bucked and shuddered under the assault of the atmospheric turbulence, but Zara's piloting was masterful, her maneuvers calculated and precise. Kyle, ever the vigilant warrior, monitored the sensors, calling out adjustments and hazards. Together, they navigated the chaos, a testament to their skill and the unspoken bond that had formed between them. It was a dance of trust and mutual respect, played out against the backdrop of the storm. As they broke through the atmosphere, emerging into the calm below the storm, the crew let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they'd been holding. Before them lay the untamed beauty of Veridian III, its secrets hidden beneath verdant canopies and mist-shrouded mountains. Zara turned to Kale, a triumphant smile on her lips. See? Nothing to it. Kale returned her smile with one of his own, the tension of their descent melting away. With you at the helm, I never doubted it for a second. Their flirtation, a constant undercurrent to their interactions, had seen them through the storm. Now, as they faced the challenges of Veridian III, it was clear that their connection had become an integral part of their strength, a source of light in the darkness of the unknown. Chapter 7. Secrets of Veridian III. The Nebula Dancer had landed softly on the verdant surface of Veridian III, nestled within a clearing that seemed almost to welcome them. The planet was alive with the sounds of an untouched world, the air rich with the scent of alien flora. Zara Lynx, ever the intrepid captain, was the first to step out onto the planet's surface, her crew closely behind her. The sense of discovery filled them all, a tangible excitement that made the dangers ahead seem like distant concerns. Zara turned to her crew, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of the unknown. "Stay sharp," she advised, her tone serious yet tinged with the exhilaration of exploration. "We don't know what we'll find here." Kale was at her side in an instant, his blaster at the ready. Their glances met, an unspoken communication that had become their norm. It was a look of trust, of readiness, and though neither would say it aloud, amidst the tension of their mission, of mutual respect, and more. The crew moved forward, their steps cautious yet determined as they ventured deeper into the alien landscape. The jungle that surrounded them was dense, a tapestry of colors and shapes that none of them had seen before. Zara led them with a confidence that inspired her team, her flirtatious nature subdued by the focus the mission demanded. Their path took them through towering trees and across clear streams, the beauty of the planet a stark contrast to the dangers they knew lurked hidden. It wasn't long before they encountered the first of these dangers, a creature that seemed to be made of vines and thorns, camouflaged perfectly with its surroundings until it was almost upon them. The battle was swift, the creature formidable, but no match for the well-prepared crew of the Nebula Dancer. Kale and Zara fought side by side, their movements synchronized in a dance of survival. The creature was dispatched, but the encounter left them all on higher alert, a reminder of the planet's treacherous nature. As they continued their trek, the flirtation that was a constant undercurrent in Zara's interactions with her crew, especially Kyle, became a source of lightness amid the tension. She would tease him about his stoic nature, drawing out rare smiles that lifted the spirits of everyone present. "Always so serious, Kale," Zara chided after the encounter, a teasing glint in her eye. "You'll scare away all the other mysterious jungle creatures." Kale's response was a rare, amused huff, a concession to the moment's levity. "Just keeping an eye out for trouble," he retorted, but the warmth in his voice was undeniable. Their journey led them to an ancient ruin, the structures overtaken by the jungle, yet still standing proud and mysterious. It was here, Zara felt, that they would find what they had come for. The entrance to the ruins was marked by symbols, their meanings lost to time but suggesting a civilization of great complexity and power. The crew set up camp at the entrance, preparing to delve into the ruins come morning. That night, under the alien stars, Zara found herself sitting beside Kyle, their earlier banter giving way to a shared silence that was comfortable, intimate, even in its quiet. "We've come a long way," Zara said softly, her gaze fixed on the stars above. "Tomorrow, we might find what we've been searching for." Kale nodded, his eyes on the fire. "Or we might find something we never expected," he added, turning to meet her gaze. "But whatever it is, I'm glad to be here, with you." The admission hung between them, a confession of sorts that neither had dared to make until now. Zara's heart quickened at his words, the connection between them deepening in the face of the unknown. "Me too, Kale," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Me too." The night deepened around them, the sounds of the jungle a constant backdrop to their quiet conversation. They spoke of dreams and fears, of what the future might hold, their words weaving a bond that was about more than just the mission. As they retired to their tents, the anticipation of the coming day mixed with the realization that whatever they found within the ruins, the journey had already changed them. They had found something rare and precious amidst the stars, a connection that would endure beyond the dangers of Veridian III. Zara fell asleep with a sense of peace, knowing that no matter what the morrow brought, they would face it together, as a crew united not just by purpose, but by the bonds of friendship and perhaps something deeper still. Chapter 8. The Heart of the Ruins. Dawn on Veridian III broke with a silence that belied the tumultuous day ahead. Zara Lynx awoke with a sense of purpose, the anticipation of discovery fueling her as she rallied her crew for the descent into the ancient ruins. The air was thick with moisture, the early morning mist wrapping around them like a cloak as they approached the grand entrance they had found the day before. The entrance to the ruins was imposing, a towering archway covered in vines, yet the craftsmanship was undeniable, speaking of a civilization that had once mastered both art and architecture. Zara paused at the threshold, her hand lingering on the cool stone, feeling the weight of history beneath her fingertips. "Stay close and keep your comms open," Zara instructed, her voice echoing slightly in the open chamber beyond the entrance. "We don't know what we might encounter inside." Kale nodded, stepping beside her, his presence reassuring. The crew filed in behind them, their lights piercing the darkness of the ruins. The interior was vast, the beam of their torches revealing intricate carvings and symbols on the walls, the meanings lost, but their beauty undeniable. As they ventured deeper, the flirtatious banter that Zara and Kale had shared was replaced by a focused determination. Yet the glances they exchanged spoke volumes, their connection a silent thread of strength between them. The ruins seemed to go on forever, a labyrinth of chambers and hallways that descended into the heart of the planet. It was in one of these chambers that they made their first significant discovery, a room filled with artifacts, undisturbed for centuries. Zara's heart raced as she stepped into the chamber, her light sweeping over objects that seemed both familiar and otherworldly. She approached a pedestal in the center of the room, atop which rested an orb, its surface swirling with colors that seemed to move of their own accord. "Look at this," Zara called, her voice a mixture of awe and excitement. Kale and the others gathered around, their eyes wide at the sight of the orb. "It's beautiful," Kale murmured, his voice low. Zara reached out, her fingers hovering over the orb before making contact. The moment she touched it, the room was filled with light, the orb coming alive with a brilliance that forced them to shield their eyes. When the light dimmed, they found themselves staring at a holographic projection that filled the chamber, a map of the galaxy, but not as they knew it. It was a galaxy reshaped, with trade routes and star systems that had long since been forgotten. This is incredible," Zara whispered, her eyes tracing the lines of light that represented the ancient galaxy. "It's a map, but it shows paths that we've never known." The crew was silent, each person processing the magnitude of their discovery. It was Kale who broke the silence, his voice thoughtful. "This could change everything. It could lead us to other lost civilizations, to technologies we've only dreamed of." Zara turned to him, her excitement mirrored in his eyes. "We need to document everything, take images, recordings, anything we can use to analyze this further." The crew set to work, their movements efficient and methodical as they catalogued the chamber's contents. Zara and Kale worked side by side, their earlier flirtations giving way to a partnership that was seamless and focused. As the day wore on, they uncovered more within the ruins, tablets inscribed with the same symbols found at the entrance, artifacts that hinted at a society both advanced and mysterious. With each discovery, Zara felt a growing connection to this lost civilization, a sense of wonder at what they had achieved. When they finally emerged from the ruins, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the landscape. They were tired, but exhilarated, aware that they had uncovered something truly remarkable. That night, as they camped at the edge of the ruins, Zara found herself sitting beside Kale, watching the stars. The discoveries of the day lay between them, a shared experience that had deepened their connection. "We did it," Zara said, her voice soft with wonder. "We found something that's been lost for centuries." Kale looked at her, his expression one of admiration and something more. "We did," he agreed, "but I have a feeling this is just the beginning." Zara nodded, her gaze returning to the stars. The ruins had offered them a glimpse into the past, but as Kale had said, this was only the beginning. Together, they had embarked on a journey that would take them beyond the boundaries of known space, into the heart of the galaxy's mysteries. And as they sat there, the galaxy stretching out before them, Zara realized that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, their bond forged in the depths of Veridian III, unbreakable and profound. Chapter 9. Echoes of the Past, Whispers of the Future. In the aftermath of their monumental discovery within the ruins of Veridian III, the crew of the Nebula Dancer set about the meticulous task of analyzing and cataloging their findings. The ship had become a floating laboratory, a hive of activity and excitement as the implications of their discovery began to unfold. Amidst this flurry of scholarly pursuit, the chemistry between Zara Lynx and Kale deepened, their shared experiences on the planet's surface acting as a catalyst for the emotions simmering just below the surface. As the days passed, the initial exhilaration gave way to a steady, burning anticipation. Zara found herself seeking out Kale's company more frequently, under the guise of discussing their next moves. Their conversations, though initially focused on the data they had uncovered, invariably drifted to more personal topics. It was during one of these late-night discussions, with the galaxy spinning silently outside the Nebula Dancer's viewports, that their connection reached a new intensity. They were in the ship's common area, a space that had become their unofficial meeting spot, surrounded by the soft hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep from the console. The dim lighting cast their faces in relief, highlighting the shared fatigue and determination etched into their features. Zara, leaning back in her chair, watched Kale as he pored over a holographic display of the ancient map they had discovered. She was struck, not for the first time, by the intensity of his focus, the way his brow furrowed in concentration. It was a look she had come to admire, a testament to his dedication and strength. "Kale," she began, her voice cutting through the silence, "have you considered what this means for us? For the galaxy?" Kale looked up, meeting her gaze. "It's a game changer," he admitted. "It could lead us to technologies, worlds we've never imagined. But it's more than that, isn't it?" Zara nodded, her heart quickening at his understanding. "It's a connection," she said softly, "to the past, to each other. It's a reminder that we're part of something bigger." The air between them seemed to charge, the weight of their discovery binding them in a way that went beyond mere camaraderie. Kale stood, closing the distance between them in a few short strides. He stopped just in front of her, his presence overwhelming in the quiet of the room. "Zara," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "these past weeks, what we've shared, it's changed me." Zara reached out, her hand finding his. "Me too," she whispered back, her eyes locked on his. "Kale, But her words were swallowed by the sudden proximity of his lips to hers, a tentative touch that spoke volumes. The kiss was a question and an answer, a culmination of the tension that had been building between them since their mission began. It was gentle at first, exploratory, but it quickly deepened, fueled by the emotions they had been holding back. When they finally parted, breathless and with hearts racing, the look they shared was one of wonder. It was as if they were seeing each other for the first time, the layers of captain and crew, protector and protected, stripped away to reveal the raw, undeniable connection between them. "We should be careful," Kale said after a moment, the rational part of him surfacing. "The mission, the crew, This could complicate things. Zara nodded, the reality of their situation settling in. "I know," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "But we can't deny what's happening between us. We'll navigate it, like we do everything else, together." Kale smiled, the warmth in his eyes reflecting the depth of his feelings. "Together," he echoed. The moment was interrupted by the chirp of the comm system, a reminder of the world beyond their bubble. Reluctantly, they stepped apart, but the connection that had been forged in the heart of Veridian III's ruins remained, a beacon that would guide them through whatever lay ahead. As they turned their attention back to the task at hand, the map and the secrets it promised, Zara and Kale knew that their journey had taken on a new dimension. They were no longer just explorers charting unknown territories. They were partners, in every sense of the word, bound by a discovery that had changed not only their understanding of the galaxy, but of each other. Chapter 10. The Edge of Destiny. In the wake of their burgeoning relationship and the groundbreaking discovery on Veridian III, Zara Lynx and Kyle found themselves at a crossroads. The ancient map they had uncovered promised not just new technologies and lost civilizations, but also hinted at a power that could shift the balance of the galaxy. It was a promise of hope, of a future unimagined, but with it came a shadow of danger, a threat that loomed large as they set their course towards the next waypoint revealed by the map. The crew of the Nebula Dancer, buoyed by the thrill of discovery and the bonds forged on Veridian III, followed their captain and her second with unwavering loyalty. Their next destination was a system on the edge of known space, a place where the stars themselves seemed to whisper secrets of the ancient past. As they approached, the mood aboard the ship shifted. The excitement of the early days of their journey gave way to a tense anticipation. Zara and Kale, their connection deeper and more complex than ever, felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. They were pioneers, standing on the precipice of the unknown, and with each passing moment, the reality of what they might find, or unleash, became more palpable. The system was unlike any they had encountered before, a star surrounded by a nebula that shimmered with an ethereal light. It was beautiful but eerie, a visual echo of the mystery they were chasing. The coordinates from the map led them to a planet hidden within the nebula, a world that seemed to pulse with energy, its surface marked by ruins that rivaled those on Veridian III. Their approach was cautious, the Nebula Dancer gliding silently through the nebula's embrace. But as they entered the planet's orbit, a sudden force gripped the ship, an energy that defied their technology and understanding. It was as if the planet itself was alive, aware of their presence and intent on preventing their descent. Zara and Kale worked feverishly to regain control, but the force was overwhelming. In the chaos, a moment of clarity passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared, of the love that had blossomed in the face of the vast and unknown. It was a look of profound connection, of shared dreams and hopes for a future that was slipping through their fingers. The Nebula Dancer was pulled inexorably towards the planet's surface, its hull groaning under the strain of the invisible grip. The crew braced for impact, their fate sealed by the very curiosity that had brought them together. In the final moments before the crash, Zara and Kale found themselves side by side, their hands clasped tightly. There were no words left to say, no promises left unspoken. Their eyes locked, and in that gaze was everything, a universe of possibilities, of what could have been and what was now lost. The impact was catastrophic, the Nebula Dancer breaking apart as it collided with the planet's surface. The energy from the ruins, a protective mechanism of an ancient civilization, consumed the ship and its crew in a brilliant flash of light. In the end, the Nebula Dancer and her crew became part of the very history they sought to uncover, their names etched in the stars as a cautionary tale of the dangers that lurk in the pursuit of knowledge and power. Zara and Kyle, whose love had transcended the bounds of their mission, were remembered not just as explorers, but as symbols of the human spirit, resilient, boundless, and tragically flawed. The galaxy spun on, indifferent to the loss of the Nebula Dancer, but for those who knew of their journey, the tale of Zara Lynx and Kale became a legend, a poignant reminder of the cost of reaching beyond the known, into the heart of the dark and beautiful unknown.